Hi, welcome to Carmen Cooks, where today we are going to make some chocolate covered zinc power balls and talk about zinc. They're pumpkin seed balls, and we're going to put in a myriad of nuts that are high in zinc and cover them with chocolate. So I have some dark unsweetened chocolate here. In my chocolate I have 6 ounces of dark unsweetened cacao. I added to it 2 tablespoons of coconut oil and 1/4 plus 1/8 cup of sugar. You can vary the sugar a little bit. I go by viewing the chocolate and go by eye, so I added these parts in increments, and I suggest when you're doing your chocolate, you do want it to look melted with a nice consistency, really shiny. I've been making little chocolate coatings for years, and I'm not a chocolatier, it's not my specialty. So we're gonna dip these in our chocolate, and then I have coconut oil greased pan. We're gonna dip our little balls into chocolate, and these are our special ones. We're gonna make some other ones that are more gingery. Oh, that's hot! My goodness. Well, while that cools a teeny bit, let's peel our dates while we talk more. And what now I'm gonna pop those in the food processor for our second round of blending dates. But what I wanted to talk about was on the chocolate. While we wait for our chocolate to cool, let's peel some more dates to make our second batch that we're gonna do without chocolate. What did I need? I wanted my measuring cup so I can measure the amount of dates I'm putting in here. Your candle? What candle? You mean that you light with the fire? Zinc plays an integral role in supporting pregnancy, and it does this in a number of different systems, and a lot of it's related. Each system is related to how zinc protects against oxidative stress, and if you don't know about the oxidative stress, you can check out this video. Zinc prevents a number of mechanisms of oxidative stress, or improves the function of a number of enzymes that are responsible for preventing oxidative stress. In pregnancy, it's an increased time of oxidative stress. The placenta, for one, is very sensitive to oxidative stress and inflammation, and if you have a lot of reactive oxygen species, you're going to have poor placental function, you're going to have lower placental blood flow, and all these factors are going to decrease the placental ability to provide your fetus with all the nutrients he or she needs. Zinc also plays a role in the development of the nervous system, and it supports neuronal membranes. You know, the brain is really high in polyunsaturated fatty acids, and one aspect of polyunsaturated fatty acids that's important to remember is that they are very sensitive to oxidative stress, just by the nature of their structural nature. Makes them very susceptible because they have these double bonds, and the bonds in polyunsaturated fatty acids can be easily oxidized. 1 cup. Woo! In our food processor, I like to blend the dates in batches, one big batch and then another big batch for a big batch like this, because otherwise it just chokes up the food processor and I can't get it all done. So zinc, if you have enough zinc, you're providing neuronal protection not only against oxidative stress, but also zinc is involved in the growth of the neurons. Zinc plays a big role in preventing preeclampsia. Preeclampsia is generally related to high levels of oxidative stress. And that's essentially, when you're left with preeclampsia, you also have reduced blood flow. Whoa, cool. Preeclampsia is marked by changes in placental perfusion, changes in blood pressure, And all of these aspects are counterproductive to the development of the baby, because having the right pressure within the mother is super important. And this happens in a number of ways, some of which we haven't quite figured out yet, but they involve aldosterone and the kidneys primarily in those changes. But if you don't have enough zinc, you can have such levels of oxidative stress that this can lead to preeclampsia, which is marked by weakened immune system, and it can cause preterm birth, illness, and that leads into another thing. A lot of times preterm birth is generally caused by illness in the mother, lack of nutrient arriving to the fetus. Imagine if the baby's not getting enough nutrients, it's gonna say, hey, I gotta get out of here because this is not working for me. Increased infections. So when I measure these, I push them down pretty well so you can see. I've just pushed them down to be an even layer. I flatten the date out so you know that I'm getting the same measurement, but I have a total of 530, well, I ate a few, so 500 grams. Half a kilogram, or about a little over a pound. Maybe a pound and 100 grams of dates. We're gonna blend that up. Wash my hands. And I can pull it in. These bowls, this dough, I'm gonna take and I'm just gonna put right here. Remember, this is my less ginger one. I'm gonna make another ginger batch. This is the kid batch. And then since I already have to make 2 batches, because it's hard to knead one batch, I'm going to now make the mama batch. Ooh. And I will say KitchenAid could have done better here. Also in their choice of representatives, they could have done better, but I had already bought this food processor, otherwise I wouldn't have. I can get this date paste out of here. And then remember, we have our pumpkin seed hazelnut. I have like 4 parts pumpkin seed to 1 part hazelnut. And then I have about 2 parts pumpkin seeds to 1 part date. If you like math, there you go. And then I put in a few tablespoons of flaxseed to help bind everything together, and a few tablespoons of black sesame seed. Black sesame seed is actually purported to help hair growth, which is fun, and decrease gray hairs. So if you've got some grays coming in, like me, start dyeing it, or start eating black pumpkin seeds. You know that in Brazil, they make hummus out of the black pumpkin seeds, and it is so divine. I really love the dark, bitter flavor of it. It's super delicious. And we're gonna add in the rest of our mix here. We've added half of our powder to 1/2, and then we're gonna add the other half here. Go ahead and knead that together. And I'll continue talking to you about how important zinc is in pregnancy. Pregnancy, as we discussed before, pregnancy is a time of increased insulin resistance. Why? Resistant means basically the cells don't see the insulin. If they don't see the insulin, they don't get their insulin door opened up or put in place, and they can't pull up glucose. It was important during pregnancy because you want the baby to get more insulin you want the baby to get more glucose before you do, and that's to keep the baby alive. And interesting, there are even different mechanisms of ketosis, and you quickly go into ketosis if your blood sugar is too low to support your baby, and you can give your baby ketones. But this is not good. It's good, but it's not good. Don't try to go into ketosis and not eat because you think, oh, my baby's gonna get the ketones. No, it's just emergency, right? With zinc and pregnancy, zinc actually can help prevent just the formation of gestational diabetes. And if you've had a test and you have excess insulin resistance past what is normal for pregnancy, you might talk to your doctor about a zinc supplement, or talk to someone like me who's more versed in the intricacies of the biochemistry that involves food pathways or the vitamin and mineral pathways, because a really good nutritionist will really know their biochemistry and be able to put all this together and say, oh, you're risk at gestational diabetes. Well, let's get you a zinc supplement. Let's make sure you're eating enough zinc. Let's get your glucose metabolism regulated, because zinc helps prevent excess insulin resistance in the mother, thus help preventing the formation of gestational diabetes. And of course, once again, we see that gestational diabetes, like preeclampsia or other issues, preterm births, damage in the neuronal membranes, can all be caused by oxidative stress. In this one, actually I probably used like 2/3 of the nut mixture in the first one and 1/3 here, but since mommy's got gray hairs, I need more black sesame seeds, and I have teeth for chewing them, so the mama portion, I'm going to add in a bunch more black sesame seeds and fold that in. I added about 3 more tablespoons, and I noticed that babies, even young children, 5, 6, 7-year-olds, they don't chew things up like sesame seeds very well, so just come out whole in their poop. But you and I, we know to chew our food and grind that down. So having enough zinc, which is coming from the pumpkin seeds and all the hemp seeds in this dish, is going to decrease the incidence of gestational diabetes and also keep your blood sugar regulated. And also gestational diabetes is contributed to by oxidative stress, partially because the inflammation that's caused by poor insulin signaling, by poor glucose signaling. Delicious. The pungent flavor of ginger is going to help my gut health. And ginger also is an anti-inflammatory compound and overall reduces inflammation in the body, and also helps calm and settle the stomach. And because it's spicy, if I put too much in the kid part, the kids are not going to like it. So here we'll put it in the mama part. That's going to be excellent for warming my digestion and improving my microbiome. I'm actually struggling with some E. coli, and this is going to help me feel less nauseous. Probably why it took me much longer to prep for this video than normal, just to get my physiology working. And, a big aspect of being a high functional person is devoting the proper amount of time to self-care. And this morning I did 30 minutes of yoga, I did lymphatic drainage, I did some additional stretching, I also did meditation. I did my face and neck massage fully to help release the tension that's associated with my gut. You can almost see it in my face, so I didn't look so nauseous. And I went to the laboratory to try to get another lab test. Made the girl cry because she didn't want to give me her money back. And she said that's the lab test I ordered. I was like, no baby, I used to work in a microbiology lab, and I had to explain that to do an antibiogram basically to test the antibiotic susceptibility to bacteria in my gut. They could not just look at the gut bacteria under a microscope, which was what they did. And I was like, no, this is not the test I ordered. And she's like, oh, but we didn't see that bacteria. I was like, well, it doesn't matter if you didn't see it or not, because there's a big difference in the sensitivity of a test where someone's looking at one droplet under a microscope versus a PCR polymerase chain reaction where it's multiplying the DNA and the RNA and then measuring out the RNA output, the DNA output of different bacteria. So you've got this huge amplified quantity of genetic material, and then you're plating it on something and letting it run through electrophoresis so you can see if it's got the DNA that matches the same weight of other bacteria or other viruses. This girl, she tried to say, would you take some medicine? I said no, and she looked at me like I was lying. I was like, I'm not lying, seriously, I'm not lying. Like, why would I lie about that? And why would I take an antibiotic before coming back and testing for antibiotic resistance? I was like, that makes no sense. And I just kind of said a joke like, well, I took some aspirin. And then she tried to tell me that aspirin would interfere with E. coli, being able to see E. coli and kill E. coli. And I was like, no, it's like, clearly you don't understand that inhibition of COX-2 is not the same as the function of the bacterial species. A totally different system, totally different pathway, they promise you that. And I had to explain to her that. I said, you know, I paid for a test where you have to plate this bacteria on a cell culture medium, and then you have to let it grow in the presence of different antibiotics to see where there's no cell growth, where you have an open dot, you know, where it's totally clear on the cell plate. Oh, that looks beautiful. And she's like, well, we don't get back returns. And I said, you know what, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go file a report about fraud here, because this is not the lab. I have the lab that I ordered here. Why would I order a less specific test after another specific test that I paid $450 for? I was like, you better give me my money back. She's like, well, we have to do it by bank transfer. I said I paid cash. You need to give me back cash. I don't have a bank account here, and I'm gonna have to go all the way home and get a ride here again. Man, finally she gave me my cash back. I was like, yeah, that's what I thought. You have the cash. But there, now that looks great. See, I pulled into a great ball. I added another 1/3 cup hemp seeds, so we have a third of our original nut mixture that we made, and we added in 2 more tablespoons of black sesame seeds to 3 tablespoons of black sesame seeds, another 1/3 cup of hemp. And I'm doing this because, one, I want the additional black sesame seeds for my hair, and then I want the additional hemp because hemp is also really high in zinc, and I am, because I'm suffering from this bacterial infection going on for years now, and I just now knew I just was having recurrent stuff, and finally just spent the freaking $400 to get the lab test done. So if you want to give me a thumbs up, you see how it's expensive to maintain this perfect form of health in our modern society, because the stuff is expensive. I then went and spent another $8 on more dates, but we added another pound of dates to our 1/3 of our nut mixture. I'm motioning into this little bowl where I had the other 1/3 of nut mixture, and this we're going to go ahead and make other balls. And this would be great if you're in your first trimester and feeling nausea. This is really great because usually when you're nauseous, you need something like ginger, and you need some protein, and you also need high amounts of zinc during your first trimester, because that's a part of initial cell growth, and preventing oxidative stress to the placenta is super important early in pregnancy. The whole pregnancy, like we discussed, zinc plays roles in preventing oxidative stress, glucose metabolism, and through that, those 2 aspects prevents neuronal damage, which then increases, neuronal migration, neuronal synthesis, correct synapse formation. If you have oxidative stress during these times, you're going to have difficulty in the initial framework of the baby's brain, and you want to avoid that. My God, I'm going blind from this motherfucking light behind me, behind you, my eyes. Oh, it's like every time I look down, it's blurry. I see seeing spots, but I'll do my best. Having enough zinc, preventing incidence of pre-eclampsia, preventing preterm birth. The zinc, the fetus during the final part of pregnancy is laying down the groundwork. Oh my God, I'm gonna add some more cacao because this is still sticky, and I think it'll go in there. And also, Mama can have more cacao. I give the kids cacao, but smaller amounts than me, or chocolate, smaller amounts, because it's just, they have a smaller body size, they can metabolize less. But Mama needs this to keep me running, so I don't pass out at 9 o'clock or 8:30 with the children. I gotta do more stuff, get all those appointments in and everything. Get my nails done, study zinc for hours on end, make sure I say the right thing, meditate, and get my energy right. Extra magnesium for Mommy and a little bit of theobromine. Actually, I like cacao things in the evening. It helps me put me to sleep. It's a big dose of magnesium right there. And I think that theobromine is yes, it's energizing, but I think it's also calming to my mind. And so the roles of zinc in preventing preeclampsia, preterm birth, the baby is stockpiling zinc like crazy. It is putting it in its liver, in its skin, in its brain, I think in its kidney as well. All these are storage places of zinc, and it's very vital. Only a small percentage of zinc is actually in the intracellular pool. And relating that to the zinc fetus storage, this fetus is rapidly accumulating zinc, and they're including the majority of the zinc, but then still, despite those mechanisms where they have the increase during the end of pregnancy, the placental increases its zinc transporters so that the baby can get more zinc. And that's very important because the baby has to be born with sufficient zinc reserves. And even during that state, when the baby's born, it's very dependent upon getting that colostrum, which has very high levels of zinc. And the baby has to get this colostrum to be able to function and for its immune system to operate. And when the baby's born, it's dependent upon the mother's milk through early lactation and throughout lactation, especially the third trimester, to get enough zinc from the mother, because the baby's zinc pools, even though it's been storing it, the baby's zinc storage is relatively low. It's not sufficient to sustain the baby. And that's why this first stages of lactation, I really recommend that you're munching on snacks like this. If you wanted to put a little Galactagogue action in this, if you're nursing, you could add some raw oats. That would be super yummy, and it will come out as well. The dates really can absorb a lot of mixture. It's really important when evaluating your labs. There can be a lot of confounders when evaluating your zinc status, because zinc status is not really reflected accurately by the serum levels. Your extracellular pools are much lower than your intracellular pools. Only about 1% of zinc is in the serum. The rest is stored. And so the body will not show a zinc deficiency until you are very, very deficient. It's almost better just to look at the symptoms, like during lactation. Are you having trouble healing? Are you still really exhausted? Are you irritable and restless? Are you having trouble with your milk flow, the prolactin production, too much or too low? All these could be indicative of, are you struggling with your immune system? Are you getting sick? Are you having allergies? Sign of high oxidative stress. All these could indicate zinc being deficient rather than the lab test, because the lab test can have your body is constantly pulling zinc out of its intracellular pools, the bone, the liver. And you will look like your zinc is normal, but actually your intracellular pools can be quite depleted. And your measurements can also be subject to a number of other co-founders as well, such as if you have stress or infection, you could these can affect your zinc levels, because your immune system is using more of the zinc, or then the bacteria or virus could be using your zinc. That can affect it. Pregnancy and oral contraceptives also affect zinc status, and because they affect things like your proteins and serum albumin. And then when you're getting your lab test, you have to have someone who realizes that when they're looking at the lab test for zinc, they need to know information surrounding how the zinc was measured, particularly in regards to time of day and your fasted state. And when you have a lab test, this can be sensitive to different things, such as if you have the lab in the morning and on an empty stomach, like you normally would go for a lab, especially nutrition labs, they ask that you go in on an empty stomach in a fasting state. Well, in a fasting state, zinc levels are going to be lower, rather than after a fed state, zinc levels actually increase in the serum. So that could be a confounder. And in the morning, zinc levels are actually lower too. They're higher in the afternoon. So it's important to be aware of all these factors when doing testing, and have nutritionists who's well versed in biochemistry and is aware of all the different aspects of zinc regulation. In addition to these, zinc is also vital for postpartum healing, for your wound healing, for your hormone recovery. So Postpartum, the fourth trimester, is very important for both the mother and the baby to get sufficient zinc intake, because you will not heal and recover properly without enough zinc during the beginning of your lactation period. Zinc is sensitive to a number of co-founders, and this can affect the amount of zinc that's measured and the amount of zinc in serum. Now, only about 1% of zinc is stored in the serum. The rest is stored in tissues, in the immune system cells, in your bone marrow, in the liver, in the bone. All this zinc that's stored, it kind of covers losses of zinc in the serum levels. So kind of like a bank, it covers overdrafts. You know, if there's a little deficiency, all that comes out of the intracellular pool and goes into the serum. You know, after birth, even zinc is responsible for resetting all your hormone systems and preventing cortisone being the inactive form of cortisol going back and being recycled into cortisol. And there are so many different intricacies preventing having action on aromatase, so that you don't have too much testosterone or estradiol being turned into estrogen, activating the progesterone receptor, so you have more action of progesterone. Zinc activating the progesterone receptor and causing it to be more sensitive to the action of progesterone. All these are super important. And so we're going to take these, the kid ones, and the mom ones, we're going to leave those as they are. And you just see that's beautiful and gorgeous, and that's a perfect mama snack. And these we're going to cover in chocolate. Some of the mama ones we're going to cover in chocolate as well. And I have my cookie sheet greased with coconut oil. You might want to use parchment paper, and you might be tempted to use parchment paper, but I don't use parchment paper because despite its convenience and how well your baked goods can turn out, it leaks endocrine disrupting chemicals. And you can check out that book, my third book, Baby Boys, the Endangered Species, a discussion on the endocrine disrupting chemicals and their effects on fertility in regards to human health. T3 cannot bind the T3 responsive DNA elements to elicit changes in metabolism when it doesn't have enough zinc. So you could have a lab test that shows you've got enough T3, and you think, well, why do I have all this fatigue and why am I so tired? Well, if you don't have enough zinc, the T3 actually can't bind to the receptors that are responsive to the T3, or the T3 receptor elements, for lack of better, or the T3 receptor elements. And if the DNA can't respond to T3 to elicit changes and upregulate the metabolism and return back to normal, then you're going to suffer in your thyroid system and your metabolism. And your doctor might say, well, your T3 levels are normal, but if they don't do a nutritional lab test, they can't know this. But you also have to think about there's a number of confounders in regards to zinc status.